So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get this Google model into your scene from Blender. There's going to be two different types of ways of doing it. I'm going to show you one way, which is a maps importer, which brings in the model, but it doesn't bring in the correct scale. It does a pretty good job, but it doesn't do the exact scale. Then I'm going to use a different one called Blosm, which comes in at the right scale, but maybe requires a bit more work and a bit more effort. It depends. And I just want to give you two solutions that you can work with. But let's first of all jump into the first way you can do it, and then I'll show you the second way you can do it. So I hope this video is helpful, and please like and subscribe if you're the first time viewer, and it helps my channel grow. Alright, thanks a lot, and let's jump into it. So there's two ways you can create Google models in 3ds Max. There's one way where you use Blender 4.0, Blosm and SimpleBake. I'll be showing that second, but the first one I'm going to show is using Blender 3.6, a Google Chrome shortcut which is slightly altered, and RenderDoc. Now to show how to use this option first, we need to go to a website here, and it's called excuse me, Maps Models Importer v0.6.2 as of today's date. And it says here Blender 3.4, but I'm going to use 3.6. It works in that one perfectly fine. And we use RenderDocs 1.25. So if we click here, you can download this, but you need to go down here and pick the build you want. Same with it here. You click here. If you want to find it, you go into previous versions, download any Blender, and you can select your version here. See, I have 3.6 and there's 3.4 if you really want to try that one. But for our sake, we want to do 3.6 because it has the new UV unfolding. So that's why we want to use that. We want to go also into this section, which is Google Chrome, and you want to change some of the settings. So let's jump into that first. So the very first thing, after you've downloaded these two installed, you're going to go to this address here, C Program Files, Google Chrome and Application. Find your Chrome here. I'll delete this one and I'll create it again. Right click here, show more options, create shortcut, click yes, and then you'll see this has been created up here. Now what we need to do is need to right click, go into properties, then in target this location, we need to open up the shortcut here. So this is for 64-bit, this is for 32-bit. What we're going to do is select all this, copy it, select all, and paste. Then hit apply, and actually I'll show you this. You can see the logo here, right here, and then I hit apply. You can see now this has changed to this logo here, so you know it's worked. And the next thing we're going to do is you need to make sure that Google Chrome is closed. You can't have Google Chrome open. So if you want to use your browser, use a different one like Firefox or Edge, whichever one you want to use. But we need this to be closed, and no instance of Chrome needs to be working in order for this to work. And now we're going to double click the Chrome shortcut. Now, if you'll know it works if you see this pop up, and it's going to give you this code 46744. Well, for you, it might be different. Every time you open up Chrome, this code is going to be different. So now we're going to start RenderDoc. Now, once this is running, what you want to do is you want to go File, Inject into Process. Now, if you don't see this option, what you'll need to do is go into Window, Tools Settings, and down here, you want to say Enable Process here, click OK, and restart your application. Then you should see this inject into process. So click this. We're going to type in the code that we see, 46744. There's our Chrome. Click this and go inject. So that's working. And then we're going to click OK on this. And you'll know it's working when you see this code up on the top left. So now we're going to go to Maps, and we're going to pick somewhere a bit more exciting than Dublin. We're going to go into New York, scroll down, and we're going to pick somewhere around here. What we need to do is we need to switch first of all. Let's do this. We're going to switch to our terrain view, make sure we're in 3D. And what I like to do is this works basically if you look at Google Chrome, as you look down here, the distant objects you can see over here are very like pixelated and not that high res, and they're using somewhat of an LOD. So the further things are away, the worse quality they will be. So using this application, it takes a print screen. So the quality you see here is going to be what you get. So as I move closer, you see the quality is better and it updates. So that's something to be aware of. So when you're taking this screenshot, make sure you're capturing as close as possible so you get the best detail possible. So once you have a location you want, I'm going to say around here. It can be tilted or straight up. For me, I'm just going to do it straight up. I'm going to click here. I'm going to add in a second delay. I find this helps. I'm going to click capture after delay, wiggle my mouse a bit, and then we have the file we want. Now, sometimes this will fail and you might have to do it again and just keep trying to make it work. So right click, save, any folder, one that you can find easily. And I'm just going to say 1. I'm just going to call that number 1 and hit save. So in order to import those ODC files, you need to go into edit, preferences, and make sure you have this installed. In order to install it, you need to download it from the site, and you download this Maps Model Importer version 0.62. Download that, keep it in a zip file, click install and find the application, and then click install, and it should be here. We now have an option to go file, import, and down at the bottom we have our DC. So if I click that, we're going to go to our file, and there's our one file, and we're going to click import Google Maps. Now this sometimes doesn't work, but since I'm scrolling up and down, I know it's a good sign, and you can see it's loaded in pretty quickly and pretty effectively. Now if I go into textured mode, you'll see we have our model. The one thing you also need to be aware of is you get the quality that is in Google. You're never going to get anything better than what's already in Google. So this is, the best quality you're going to get. Problem is now, if you look over on your right hand side, we have all these meshes. So if I scroll up, I have all these meshes, and we need to combine these and have one texture in order to bring this into 3ds Max and using your ArchViz projects. So luckily there's another YouTuber I'm going to show now who has a Python script that runs this all for us. So let me show you this. So Nico16 here, his YouTube channel, he has a clean up map tiles fast using Blender 3.6 and up. So in his video, which I recommend you watch,
showed you how
he has a script. If I click here, he has a script which runs everything in order to get the map into one section. So let me show you what that means. So you can go here and you can go go here, which one's copy file contents. I'm going to minimize that. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up another view. I'm going to change this to a text editor, go to new, paste this in. I'm going to go to window, toggle system console, pop this over here so we can see what's happening. And now I'm going to save this file, model importer, and then I'm going to run the script. There we go. And then I'm going to hit play. Now this is going to run through all this, and it might take a moment, maybe 10 minutes or so. Just leave it for a while, and when you come back, you should have one texture and all the models joined together. So that completed in just over 2 minutes, and so not too long, and it looks pretty much identical to what we had last time. The only difference is now we have one model and we have one material applied to it, and even better, we just have one texture. So like make this a bit bigger. We have one texture which is applied to the whole thing. But one thing we need to do is we need to save out this texture now. So in order to do that, make sure you have your UV editor open here. We're going to go to image, save as, and we'll save this in the same folder. Hit save. Once that's saved, we now need to export this file out. So go file, export, FBX. And again, in here, we call it the same, export FBX, and we're done. So let's jump into 3ds Max and see what this looks like. Okay, so let's import the model straight into 3ds Max. Import here, go to our model import, click open, and then we're going to scroll down to advanced, and in units we want to change this to centimeters. If you're using imperial, you'd want to use, I think it's feet, but centimeters seems to get me the closest. It's not perfect, but it's the closest one. So click centimeters and click OK. And there we go. Now we have our model imported. I'm going to turn off the grid, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a camera like this. Go into our camera and just start pushing this up and down, maybe zoom out a bit. Now let's see what it looks like in our first initial render. So let's click here, click render, and there we go. So it's not half bad. Let me go into IPR in this side, and then let me start moving around, and you can see that's pretty good. Like as a standard Google model, it looks very realistic in terms of what you need for context. It wouldn't be something you use for high-res models and then zooming in and getting close-ups, but it's excellent for context. And you can also, if you want, delete these trees and replace them with your own. Now, the one thing I just want you to show you is if I turn off IPR, is the scale. So if I go to top view, go here, go line, and I'm just going to pick something like these 2 points. So if I go back to maps and I choose something that's very distinct, like this red color, this contrast, so I can select here, measure distance, and I'm going to go here, and it's about 16 to 17 meters. So let's measure that. So we have this point all the way across to this point, click, and if I go into measure, you'll see this is 21 meters. So it's off by about 5 meters. Now you could go in and scale that and get it perfectly matching, but I just want you to be aware of that this scale isn't absolutely perfect. You might have to adjust your model if you're using it in the real world and you need it to be perfect. So that's pretty much it, how you import it that way. I'm going to jump on to the second way you can do it. So now we're going to use the Blosm technique, and this is using a plugin called, you guessed it, Blosm. So it's using Blender 4.0, the latest version as today's date, and it's also using SimpleBake. SimpleBake is an app you can purchase online. I think it's about $18. So let's go into our website here where you can find the Blosm. You can pay whatever you want for €0 for a free version, or you can get the premium version. If you use it a lot, I recommend getting the premium version. So once you have this downloaded, you can install it the exact same way as you did with the first plugin. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make sure you have the Blosm plugin installed. So again, it's the same thing. I have Blosm here and I have it installed. Now the very first thing we need to do is we need to create a Google Cloud account for this API to work. So down here you should see I have a key here, which should be grayed out for you, but you need to get your own key. And the way to do that is Google 3D Tiles, hit get it. Once you hit that, it will open up this page. Now I already have it, so if I go to my platform here and I hit get started, I can go to my APIs and services, and you need to make sure that you have this map tiles API enabled. Another thing you need to note is when you set up this account, you need to give bank details. So if you don't have a card you give, you can't use it. Now it is a paid service, but not for the first like 28,000 tiles. You will never pay for it. It's more for companies that will pay, but you still need to put bank details in. So that's something to be aware of. So once you've enabled this, you need to go to your keys and you need to go show key, and your key will show up here, and you need to copy that, minimize this, and paste it into the key here. Once you have that set up, you're pretty much ready to go. You also want to create a folder that you can put your Google files temporarily in. Once that's done, you're ready to go. So let's import something. I'm going to hit N. I'm going to go to Blosm here. I'm going to make this a bit bigger so you can see. And you have multiple options here. And the one we're going to be using is Google 3D Tiles. Click that. Then you want to drop down to the highest quality, which is buildings with more details. And that's it. We can leave these both checked. And then the great thing about this plugin compared to the other one is I can hit select here, and it's going to open up a map, and we can zoom in and we'll get the same spot we've been getting in the previous one, so we can compare them both. Now I think it's in here. Then what you can do is go show selection, and this is what it's going to capture. Now it will capture more than you actually put in because it will capture tiles, so make sure that the thing you want is in the center of your shot. It's not going to get exactly what you want, but it will encompass more. So once you're happy with that, I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to go back to Blender and I'm going to hit paste. Now that's pasted in. Then you can save it if you want just before, and then hit import. And give that a second to import. It might take a few minutes depending on your internet speed and your computer speed. Okay, so that imported, it took a while, maybe about 5 minutes or so, probably even less. So let's see what it looks like. And there we go. It looks very similar to the other way we did it. The trees might look slightly better, but that might be just a texture or me imagining things. But now that we have this, we need to get this into 3ds Max. And what's the difference between this one and the other one? Well, the other one had lots of bits of material, different objects and lots of materials. This one has one object, but has lots of different materials. So the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to save that, and I want to put all the files. If I go here and I go to shader editor, you'll see all the files are kind of unpacked at the moment. So I want to go file, external data, pack resources, unpack resources. Click this and click here, and that's going to pack all the files. I just think that's better to have them in here rather than somewhere else I can't find them. So save that. And one thing we need to do before we bake, and that's what we're going to be doing with the SimpleBake. And also, by the way, as you see, I zoom out, this disappears. If that happened to you, go to view here and just change this to something like 10,000 and that'll come back. Now what we need to do is bake this to another version of itself, because we need all the materials, all the different materials to be in one, all the different textures to be in one. So we need to bake that to a new thing. So we need to give this new UVs. So select your object, hit tab, hit tree, make sure we have all the polys selected, go to the UVs data here, UV maps, and we're going to create a new UV. So click new, double click this and call it SimpleBake with a capital S and a capital B. So then we have that, we can click U over here, Smart UV Project, and click OK. This shouldn't take long at all, only a few seconds, it's done. Hit tab to go back to object mode, and then we're going to go into render and make sure to install the SimpleBake in your extensions. So once that's installed, I'm going to switch this to CycleBake. I'm going to go to bake options, I'm going to add in our object. In CycleBakes, I only want the diffuse. So I don't want any of the lighting to be baked. So I'm going to uncheck both those. This can be, if you have lots of objects, you can drop this all the way down to 1. I'm going to keep it at 4096. I'm going to go to texture baking and I'm going to do a 8K texture. That was similar, the exact same size as the previous one we just did. So we want to bake at 8K and we want to output at 8K. Then we want to go to our export settings and I want to export the bakes and I want to export the mesh as well. That's all good. Go to UV settings, and this is where we're going to say use the existing maps called SimpleBake, the one we just created. So check that, uncheck the bottom one, go to other settings, and I'm going to copy the object. So it's going to copy this and apply the new material. And for this one, I'm going to change the principal to BSDF because that's what I've done here. Now, before we do any of this, those are the settings done. You can go up here and you could save this. I'm going to X this one, and then we can go to Google Maps and save that preset so we can use it again later. But then we have this, we need to change these materials, and I have a script that I made, and I'm going to go to text editor, new. So I have the script I made, so let's go over here. We're going to grab my script, copy it, and we're going to paste it in here, save it just before I do this, click here, and I'm going to click play. So that's gone in and changed all the materials. If I show you here now, it's now a lot simpler, and it has a principal BSDF shader instead and the images in here. So now we can go into our bake, and with all those settings we just hit bake, and depending on the speed of your PC this could take a while, especially if we do like an 8K texture. So I'm going to hit bake and come back when it's done. Okay, so that's finished up now. Click OK and let's close this, and there we go. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty similar to the actual model itself. You can see here now we have this one map with one material, one object, one material. So that's perfect. What we need to do now is, all we need to do is go here. It's after creating SimpleBakes, and it has the FBX and the Google diffuse. So if I double click this, you'll see the material. So now let's jump into 3ds Max and bring it in. Okay, now we're in Max. I'm going to go File, Import, and we'll grab our file in Blender, in Blosm, and our FBX. Click this, click Open, and click OK. So that's been imported. And I'm going to check one thing quickly, because remember we had the scale issue. If I then grab this line here and I go, well, it's a bit harder to say here, but around here, I go into measure, you'll see this is actually around 17 meters, which matches here. So you'll actually see the advantage of this one is, one, it has the correct north and east and west direction and south, and it also has the proper scale. So that's the big benefit of using this one. So now let's see what it looks like when you render it. So let's go to camera, and you can see this looks pretty good. Again, similar quality to the other one, but the advantage of this one is the scale is 100% correct. So that's a big advantage when you use the actual Google one. Again, you have to have a credit card or a debit card or some type of bank details to use it, but I think it's well worth it. And this is pretty much it. Let me compare both of them back face to face with each other. So if I turn this on, there's this view. And let's zoom out and we'll grab the other one and zoom in on this one. maybe we need to rotate it, and you can see there's similar quality. It really depends what way you want to go about it and how you want to use it. But those are two ways you can grab context models and say bring in your own then proper high-res model to use for your ArchViz. And I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you can use it in your projects in the future.